Hi there, Grant Blaschke here from the Nossal Institute for Global Health, and we're talking today about the Sustainable Development Goals. So these are some new goals which are being developed by the United Nations, which are going to begin at the start of 2016 and follow what are called the Millennium Development Goals, which many of you will have heard of in the past. So the Millennium Development Goals were developed back in 2000, and there were 8 of these goals to do with reducing poverty, improving education, gender equality, reducing child mortality, reducing maternal mortality, reducing malaria, HIV and other diseases, ensuring environmental sustainability, and building global partnerships. So that was a fairly ambitious agenda, and having these goals really helped shape a lot of countries' policies and programs so that everyone was pushing in the same direction. And they had some really good achievements. But these Millennium Development Goals were also limited in a number of ways. In particular, they were criticised for being too narrow. They didn't include enough about human rights. They didn't focus enough on gender equity. They didn't focus enough on economic development. So here we are on the cusp of a new set of goals, and there's been a lot of discussion and a lot of thought that have gone into these. Now, you know that they're probably a bit complicated because there's 17 of these goals with literally 169 targets, which sounds like a big ask. But they differ from the Millennium Development Goals in some important ways, which we'll talk about. So why do we need these goals, and why is it relevant to young doctors? Well, I think for young doctors, such as those working with the excellent group AMSA, you are the future medical workforce, and it's very easy as you move through your medical training to get completely focused on clinical issues or, you know, the burdens of life, the financial issues, family life. But I guess it's fair to say there's a really wonderful opportunity for your generation of doctors to make an important difference in these important global and environmental issues. So when we have a look at these Sustainable Development Goals, a simple definition is one that was made by the famous Brundtland report, which simply says sustainable development is development which meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to also meet their needs. So that's a simple definition. But if we have a look at what some of these goals are that the United Nations are looking at, the first 7 or so build on the Millennium Development Goals and are to do with ending poverty and ending hunger, making sure we've got equitable education, gender equality, water and sanitation issues, and affordable and sustainable energy. So all really important issues. Then they've got some additional goals which I guess are informed by recognising that there's a whole lot of upstream system issues which impact on whether or not you can actually achieve these wonderful goals. So they focus on goals which are to do with safe, inclusive, sustainable cities, making sure that effort goes into sustainable infrastructure, and particularly looking at the environment, looking at sustainable production and consumption, urgent action on climate change, absolutely essential, how we manage our oceans and our seas, sustainable use of the oceans and seas, many issues to do with fishing and pollution which need to be considered, and also protecting the terrestrial systems, our forests. Desertification is a real issue, and halting biodiversity loss. So this is a big wish list, isn't it? And as well as that, they've added a couple more goals which are to really of a more sort of social and political nature. So encouraging and nurturing sustainable, peaceful, inclusive institutions, and revitalising global partnerships for sustainable development. So this is a really big wish list, but it's very important that we have such goals because they do coordinate our efforts and they do help provide some targets and some outcome measures for what we're doing. Now, just to provide a little bit of context, we happen to be living in a time where we've had this huge boom in population, you know, heading towards 9 billion people. We've still got, even though we've had some improvements, we've still got 1 in 7 people still in extreme poverty, 1 in 9 people are undernourished, and climate change is not going anywhere. We haven't got a real solution in sight. It'll be interesting what we can do at the end of this year in Paris if we get an international agreement. So, very important time for us to do something. The other thing that's changed dramatically since I was a medical student some 25 years ago is the interconnectedness, the hyper-connected world that we have. Complex systems of connected information, transport, financial connections, and even diseases move between borders, and ideas and ideologies are also moving between borders. So as we have this globalized, hyper-connected world, so what can you do? I'm sure as medical students you've got a lot to do already, but doctors have a particularly important and influential role in the community, and you shouldn't underestimate that. So stay informed, stay engaged with these broader issues, and I'd recommend that you work with non-doctors as well. So there's only so much, even though we're a pretty intelligent, motivated bunch, there's only so much as doctors we can do. So you'll have a much more interesting career if you can work with, you know, city designers, architects, engineers, communications people, lawyers, policymakers. All these range of people are needed to try and implement some of these very lofty goals, such as those Sustainable Development Goals. And I would also recommend that you think in systems. We really live in a situation where our health systems and our population systems are all interconnected, and thinking in terms of systems will help you. Another point I'd like to make is sometimes these problems can seem quite overwhelming, and so it's very important not to feel like you have to deal with it all on your own. So I recommend working with excellent organisations such as AMSA or other organisations as you move through, work with some of these wonderful institutions. So that's a little bit about the Sustainable Development Goals. It's an incredible time in history. We have a big summit coming in New York in September of this year, where there'll be some decisions made, and next year these Sustainable Development Goals will be put in place. So we'll watch this space with interest. And so I wish you well with your studies and with your work with AMSA. All the best. Bye.